Hi, my name is Emily Gata, and I decided to do my applied criminology presentation on the social learning theory and copycat crimes. The social learning theory was created by Albert Bandura. It combines classical and operant conditions with the environmental aspect of criminology, stating that children not only observe their behavior around them, but it influences them as well. These things can influence people influence behavior, and that can in turn influence their environment. Albert Bandura combined a bunch of different theories to create his own theory. By combining stimuli to the environment with two different types of conditioning, he created a theory that summarized the social aspect of crime in totality. By doing this, combining different theories, he made one larger theory that could really explain more than the others could. The major principles of the social learning theory are retention, observation, reproduction, and motivation. Retention would be being able to recall important information that you've seen or that you've heard to be able to copy them as well. Observation would be learning from what others do around you. Reproduction would be after you recall the information, being able to do it yourself and reproducing the behaviors. Motivation is whether you want to do something based on usually punishment or reward, which are one of the conditions. The broader theory, social process, is the larger category of the social learning theory because it is the process by which the social aspects impact your criminality and the environment around you. It is defined as the social processes are the ways in which individuals and groups interact, adjust and readjust, and establish relationships and patterns of behavior which are again modified through social interactions. The type of crime I decided to choose was a copycat killer. I thought this was pretty interesting because it kind of ties in the idea that you're copying somebody else's moves and motives and all those kinds of things. The copycat killers primarily learn from the people in the media or people around them, and they wish to fulfill those behaviors that other people have done. In these cases, they usually admire a case of a serial killer and then try to recreate their style of murder. I decided to choose Herberto Sida, who was the copycat killer of the famous Zodiac killer. He was born in 1967 and began murders in 1990 and was arrested after 3 murders in 1998. He sent letters to the police just as the original Zodiac did, which included cryptic letters with different types of style of fonts that would tend to throw off the police officers. He also based his victims off their astrological signs, just as a Zodiac killer did as well. Studies on crime. One perspective perceives media provided models of crime functioning as direct causes of criminality or as crime triggers. The other sees media crime models serving as crime-forming catalysts or as crime rudders. This would support how I applied my theory, since it explains how social media provides the platform for people to see what they do see and then recreate what is on social media. You can see this not only from crime itself, but you see this from all these challenges all over social media and things like that, and people recreating them at home. The next quote is that the social construction of copycat crime exhibits a process in which a new criminological meme developed first as a media construct and subsequently as a criminological concept. This is another study and article about how copycat crime mostly starts from the media, but is also their criminal tendencies usually begin to develop at a very young age. The next part of the studies would be talking about how who the creator was, which was Albert Bandura, and how his work itself actually goes into how I applied my theory. So he said that after modeling stimuli have been coded into images or words for memory representation, they function as mediators for response retrieval and reproduction, which also include the major points of his actual theory. Another thing is that overall, the results strongly confirm that the main thrust of the theory, prior to criminal reinforcement and current crime-favorable definitions, are highly related in the 3 contexts, both strongly predict self-projections of criminological behavior. Which sounds kind of complicated, but basically what it's saying is that the theory does support that this makes crime more favorable because you're watching other people do it as well. The application of the theory. I decided to choose the copycat killer, as I said before. The reason why I did this was because they're actually learning the behavior as they're seeing it. So a copycat killer is able to access information about the murderer that they are trying to replicate through media platforms. Google is one of the biggest sources of them being able to find information about killings and different crimes that have been going on. Then they use the same details that they found in order to recreate the killings with new victims, which is what Mr. Sita did. He recreated the Zodiac killings by replicating what he did down to the smallest details. The theory, I believe, can be used to explain many different types of crime. If a child had a father who would steal, he may see that and imitate his actions. But in this case, I think it can easily explain copycats because the whole theory talks about replication of actions, and that is exactly what a copycat killer does. Summary of all my major points was my goal was to capture Albert Bandura's social learning theory by applying it to a copycat killer. I decided this would be the easiest way to exemplify how watching someone, even through social media, and how much your environment can impact you. The copycat got his idea from a notorious serial killer who is well known in the media. The social learning theory talks about replication and imitation, and that is the definition of a copycat killer. My thoughts. I believe from the social learning theory can be explained many aspects of crime. From personal experience, although they are not criminals, while nannying and babysitting children, they tend to replicate things that you do. Most things children learn are from watching people as they look up to. Also, they can learn things from social media. The kids I nanny for now all have iPads and phones, and they go on YouTube and find different videos and things like that, and that's how they learn to do things. It's also the same with criminals. I think that this theory can explain many aspects, including how the environment you're in can impact how you grow up. But one thing I think that it lacks is an explanation of the biological factor of crime. I've always believed that there was two different sides to crime. I think that social and environmental aspect is a big part, but there's also a biological one that you can be predisposed to having things happen, such as mental illness and things like that, that can impact your availability to commit crime or your reasoning to commit crime. And I think that's the big part that this is missing. I think the theory is limited, as I said before, because it doesn't explain the biological factors. It doesn't talk about chemistry or biology of a person's makeup and what that can influence for that. It really only talks about the social aspect, and it really doesn't talk about nature versus nurture, which I think is a big psychological thing that should be talked about. My recommendation would be by giving positive influences and interactions, we can help shape the community better and the people within it. I think by expanding our horizons and letting people interact with one another, giving them good, positive models would be the easiest way to allow people to better understand and create new people in the workforce and other things. So that way, in totality, we all become better people. And I think by limiting the amount of crime exposure through social media, that would be another way to control what people see, which would change the crime rates based on the social learning theory. These are some images. It just kind of shows the dad yelling at the mom yelling at the son hitting the teddy bear, which kind of shows like they've learned anger all throughout. And then the one on the right shows the social learning theory that behavior affects personal factors affect environment, and environment affects your behavior. So it's like a big system. And these are my works cited, and that is it. Thank you very much.